Hello, and thanks for joining us for these Newnan-Coweta Chamber of Commerce forums for partisan primary races being held on Tuesday, May 21st. Tonight's forums are hosted by the Newnan-Coweta Chamber of Commerce with thanks to its advocacy sponsor, AT&T. I'm Dean Jackson, joined by Clay Neely, and we'll be the moderators for our two candidates who are with us tonight. This forum features candidates for Georgia State House District 73 in the Democratic primary. This district covers parts of Coweta County, making its representative part of Coweta's State House delegation. Early voting for this race is going to open on April 29th, ending May 17th, and the winner of this May 21st primary will go on to the general election in November. Both candidates in this year's primary in this seat, for this Georgia State House seat, are with us tonight, and they are Tom Thomason. Good to see you, sir.
Nice to see you.
And also Tim Wilkerson. Good to see you, sir.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, thank you both for joining us this evening. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what we'll do, our forum tonight is intended to give voters an opportunity to hear the views of these candidates on issues faced by the communities represented by this district and in the state of Georgia generally. The Chamber of Commerce is a nonpartisan organization and does not endorse candidates for office. Questions have been submitted by Chamber members and apply equally to our candidates in this forum. Each candidate was given the opportunity to complete a general information questionnaire ahead of this forum. The responses will be available on both the Chamber website and accessible through the Newnan Times-Herald's website. We ask that our guests at tonight's forum also respect this neutrality by refraining from any demonstration for or against any candidate. We ask that you hold your applause or any show of support or opposition during our forum. This occasion is meant to give our candidates a chance to speak for themselves as they seek election. The forum's format allows each of our candidates a 2-minute opening and a 2-minute closing statement. Our candidates will have up to 1 minute in between to respond to a series of questions. After the second candidate gives his answer to a question, a 30-second rebuttal will be allowed if chosen. Candidates will also be signaled when they have about 10 or 15 seconds left as they respond and may finish their sentence when their time is up. We're also going to alternate who goes first on each question. So, with that all said, again, thanks to you for joining us and for choosing to run in this important election. We begin with our opening statements. We'll turn to you first, Mr. Thomason. Tell us a little bit about yourself personally and professionally and why you are running for the Georgia House of Representatives and the Democratic nomination for this seat.
Great. Thank you for the Chamber for allowing me to present my vision for District 73. I'm originally from South Carolina, but I've called Newnan home since 1992, where I've been an employee as a flight simulator technician for Delta Airlines for the last 32 years. I've been very active in Democratic politics in the Democratic Party and serving the last 2.5 years as the first vice chair of the party. I'm running for this seat because I believe the job of the representative of the state of Georgia is to represent the people, not the lobbyists, not the large donors. A poll was done, or 2 polls actually were done before the legislative session asking the voters what were their priorities. The #1 priority was expanding Medicaid. The #2 priority was regaining women's reproductive freedom. The current state legislature did nothing for either of those. At the bottom of the spectrum, the least priorities were legalized gambling, and at the very, very bottom, school vouchers. The state legislature pushed through a gambling bill which would have gone to the voters to be put on as a constitutional amendment, but it was killed by casino lobbyists when they realized that there was no provisions for casinos. The voucher bill is an abomination. It's actually only covers 1% of students in the state of Georgia at a cost of $141 million to Georgia taxpayers, money that could be much better spent improving those bottom 25% of schools with things such as reducing class sizes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilkinson, your opening statement.
Okay, and I've adjusted it a bit considering the time limitations. Hello, everyone. I'm Tim Wilkinson, and I'm running to represent District 73 and the Georgia State House of Representatives. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for making this event possible, and I want to thank my wife for being present here tonight, along with all of the people that are participating as citizens in this political activity. Moving on to issues, I think first of all it is essential to maintain law and order so that families feel safe living in our county, and that it is job one and a prerequisite for attracting and maintaining business. I would also attempt to maintain the quality of public education in Coweta County and throughout the district, to include extensive job training and a range of industries, including automotive, battery, and a wide variety of IT. I further would explore the potential of regulating and taxing casino gambling in the Atlanta metropolitan area and the Savannah markets to maintain and increase tourism in the state, and to include the possibility of several casinos directly off I-85 in North Coweta County. We must at least examine the feasibility of this. The taxes would increase local government funding and keep income in the state, and I would also like to attempt to legalize non-public marijuana use for recreational purposes. This is an existing industry that is not regulated for the safety of consumers, and in fact endangers consumers by not regulating the purity of said product and leaving them vulnerable to exploitation by illegal cartels, and subsequently depriving citizens of the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. Our first question tonight is about partisanship and party. You are a Democratic candidate. Tell us about your decision to run specifically as a Democrat and your relationship with or experience with your party. We'll start with Mr. Thomason.
Okay. I would be thrilled to work with the other party in the legislature. Unfortunately, from my experience speaking with my own current legislator, they basically vote their party line and really don't listen to Democrats that much. I spoke to Josh Bonner at the State House and concerning Medicaid expansion, and he told me he really didn't know a lot about Medicaid expansion because he was just pushing the governor's bill, the Pathways, Georgia Pathways, which has been a dismal failure, only signing up 4,000 people in 10 months when their goal was 100,000 the first year.
Mr. Wilkinson.
I certainly agree with Tom, and as regards to the need for Medicaid extension, it is certainly needed in the state and would provide valuable funds to take care of the less fortunate.
Thank you.
Ms. Thomason, would you have a rebuttal?
No.
We'll pass that by. Move on to our next question. Mr. Wilkinson, we're going to turn to you first. You're running for a seat in the Georgia General Assembly. If you win this primary, you're going to face a general election, as y'all mentioned, in November, which, if you win, would lead to a two-year term in the State House. So, on that eventuality, tell us what kind of lawmaker you expect to be. What, in your view, makes a lawmaker effective? How will you balance your personal beliefs with the needs and wants of your district and your relationship with the Georgia House as an institution? Mr. Wilkinson.
Thank you for that question. I believe that is probably one of the first issues that I would address is the mention of a two-year term. I believe that it should be extended to 4 years. I think that if you limit it to 2 years, then your representatives in Congress are just continuously running for re-election. We don't need that. If elected, I want to be very proactive. I want to bring things, show leadership nationwide that has been lacking as far as issues such as casino gambling and legalizing the recreational use of marijuana, and also ensuring women have the right to make their own health care decisions when it comes to their pregnancy.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Thomason, same question.
Could you repeat it?
Absolutely, yes.
I was expecting a rebuttal.
If you were to serve in the State House, tell us what kind of lawmaker you expect to be. What, in your view, makes a lawmaker effective, and how will you balance your personal beliefs with the needs and wants of your district and your relationship to the Georgia House as an institution?
Okay, my belief is the first thing a representative does is listen to the people. My views are mine, but I am, as a representative, supposed to represent the views of the people, and I think the first thing you should be doing is out listening to the public, checking polls to see what the public wants. And again, I believe we could get some bipartisan things through, such as the Medicaid expansion only failed by one vote when they decided to listen to one representative saying, give the governor's plan time to work another year, when I think they've had plenty of time. They also created a study commission to study whether Medicaid expansion would be good. I think 40 other states having successful Medicaid expansion is proof enough.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilkinson, rebuttal?
Well, I would like to say that I have 33 years of service with the United States Postal Service, and during said service, I have spent many years as a union representative, and I have found that a large part of that job is getting people to work to come to a compromise. The constant conflict and confrontation leads to nowhere. We're gonna have to be able to sit down and talk to each other and respect each other's beliefs and come to reasonable conclusions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Thomason, rebuttal?
No, I agree with what he said.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, excuse me, though, I would like to point out, as far as, I also agree as far as unions. When Delta Airlines merged with Northwest Airlines several years ago, I led the union effort in my department trying to get unionized. We lost, unfortunately, by 3 votes.
Thank you, sir.
Gentlemen, as the primary function of the General Assembly is to set the state budget, our next 2 questions deal with the state budget and taxes, respectively. First, the Georgia General Assembly passed this year a $36.1 billion budget in March, including significant pay raises for state employees. The fiscal 2025 budget was an 11% increase over the prior year, but still $1.5 billion below the fiscal 2024 mid-year spending plan. How do you assess the state's budget priorities passed by the General Assembly this year, and what items would you consider most important going forward? Mr. Wilkinson.
Okay. You said that state employees got an 11% raise?
Yes, sir.
And that does sound rather large, but they were probably being underpaid to start with. So I would assume that they probably deserve that. And there's no more important job than being involved in government and protecting everyone's rights and initiating legislation for the betterment of everyone. So I would be supportive of making sure that these employees are reasonably paid, and I believe very much in frugal government. I consider myself very much a fiscal conservative. As a matter of fact, as an example, I've only bought a Toyota Corolla my entire life, and I've had 4 of them, and make that 4, not 8, but 4, and I'm waiting on it to die before I can get another vehicle, and I'll probably wind up buying another Toyota Corolla because it gets me where I need to go, and it's very efficient.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you. While there were some good things in the budget, such as the pay raises, and there was some additional funding to medical services, the fact is the state legislature is sitting on a $16.1 billion surplus while we sit here as the 2nd highest rate of uninsured people in the country. Medicaid expansion would cost approximately what that 0.1% tax decrease. I would much rather have my approximately $50 a year go to expand Medicaid and get nearly 500,000 Georgians covered on insurance.
Very good.
Buttle?
Amen. I couldn't have said it better. No doubt about it. And hopefully some of these initiatives that I'm promoting will only increase the amount of income that comes into Georgia. Money that is going out of state currently to foreign states on casino gambling, and money that is constantly kept in the black market of an industry that is never taxed. So we have a bright future here in Georgia. I'm very proud. And I think that the government overall has been run well, but certainly when it comes to Medicaid expansion, as Tom mentioned, that's imperative.
Thank you.
Rebuttal? Then let me move on to a related question that you mentioned, the state's budget surplus. Let me ask you something a bit related to that. State approved a flat income tax in 2022. It then enacted a multi-year reduction in that flat tax tax rate, in response to rising revenue and the growth of that surplus, and then voted to accelerate that reduction this year. What are your views on the current overall structure and direction of the state tax and tax revenues?
Well, I did like the fact that they increased the child deduction on your taxes. But as I said before, a 0.1% decrease in your income taxes when we have 500,000 Georgians going without health insurance is unacceptable. The same thing happened before. They reduced, I think, also about the same percentage. And again, at that time, that could have paid for health care. Meanwhile, we're spending $141 million to pay for a voucher bill that only 1% of students will be able to take advantage of. And most of those will be more or less in the high income range because the voucher is capped. They say it's capped for low income, but it's capped at 4 times the poverty rate for a family of 4, which is $120,000. The top 10 salary in Georgia is only $67,000. So basically, those vouchers are going to go to high-income people because the poor people cannot afford to pay the additional that the private schools cost.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilkinson, same question.
I certainly support increased funding for public education. I think that that's essential to maintain our status in this nation, to attract good quality teachers, and to continue to progress. I do want to say, I think Tom said maybe there was a cut in taxes somewhere, and I certainly haven't noticed it because every year we pay state income tax extra. So I do believe that some of these proposals that I have will help alleviate any tax increases certainly in the future, and will help to support pay for Medicaid expansion.
Thank you, sir. Rebuttal, Mr. Thomason? All right.
Let's talk about a few other issues. This year, the Georgia legislature passed a series of election rules that would change how votes are counted on ballots, create a new ballot security measure, define voter eligibility challenges, and lean towards paper balloting. Election security and voter access have been major ongoing political issues, at least since the state's 2020 elections. At this point, what do you think about the changes that have been passed or instituted into Georgia law? And do you favor more or different approaches, Mr. Wilkinson?
Well, certainly Mr. Raffensperger, the Republican Secretary of State, has spoken loud and clearly on this issue, that there was nothing improper in the last election, and that it was the most secure election that we've had in probably Georgia's history. So any attempt to come up with the new regulations, I would be very suspect of, and I believe that we already have a fair and safe election system.
Thank you. Mr. Thomason.
I agree with Tim as far as our Secretary of State said in 2020 we had one of the most secure elections in history. Senate Bill 202 that was passed was full of voter suppression items, so trying to restrict people's absentee ballots, restrict people's access to the ballot box, and they have over the years been closing precincts so that currently if you live in a predominantly black precinct, you have your wait for voting is 9 times longer than if you live in a predominantly white district or precinct. So I think most of the voter laws that they've passed should be repealed because as again, our Secretary of State said, we had a secure election. These bills that they've passed in the last several years are useless.
Mr. Wilkinson, any rebuttal?
I believe I would agree with Tom completely. Yes, definitely. And just the thought that voting lines are longer in poor neighborhoods is outrageous. It's another suppression of the vote.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, there are a lot of issues we could get onto tonight. I wish we had time, but in the interest of our other forums, we're going to have to come to an end on this one. And so we're going to move to our closing statements. I just want to take a moment to thank each of you again for coming tonight and being forthcoming with us on these issues. We've tried to discuss several important matters, and I know there are many things that we haven't had time for. If there are some of those that we've missed that are particularly important to you, please use part of your closing statement to address that so that our members can know what those things are. But we're going to start with 2-minute closing statements. Mr. Wilkinson, we'll reverse order and start with you this time.
Okay, one thing that I didn't have time to address was the traffic situation in the district. The east-west reliance on 3454 is outrageous. Something definitely needs to be done about that. I stand with all Americans who yearn to remain free and who believe in the basic principles of our democracy and who serve to defend our sacred Constitution. And I promise to protect our basic rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness if I am elected to office. No person and no party shall lead us back in time to the days of white male supremacist rule. We must embrace the strength of our diversity to forever move forward. Never forget the strength of democracy and the belief and words of our forefathers that united we stand and divided we shall surely fall. And remember, America was great yesterday, America is great today, and America will be even greater tomorrow. This is why I wish to represent this district in the great state of Georgia. I thank you sincerely for your time, and I ask for your support in the coming weeks and months. And once again, my name is Tim Wilkinson, and I cannot win without you. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. Mr. Thomason.
Okay. As I stated in my opening statement, I would like to represent the issues that are important to Georgians. Medicaid expansion, restoration of women's productive rights, true equal voting for all citizens, strong public education. We had in our legislature several, we will say, anti-woke bills that are basically discriminatory, and luckily most of them did not pass. I would also like to see an end to the so-called zombie bills that they put through on the last day, where they tried to tack on some of this anti-woke stuff onto good bills. We had a good bill that would have provided mental health for student athletes that did not pass because the Senate put a bunch of anti-woke, anti-gay student banning books, banning students from hearing about sex education in school. So again, I want to represent the will of the Georgia voters and not lobbyists and big donors. I appreciate to have your vote on May 21st. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you both for your attendance tonight. We appreciate it. We definitely appreciate you stepping up and running for office, as we do for all of our candidates, both Democrats and Republicans, in these partisan primaries. Thank you very much. Thank you also, I should say, to the Chamber's advocacy sponsor, AT&T, and to the Central Educational Center student interns who are filming this for our community and our chamber tonight. Thank you very much, and good evening.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.